Chapter 1. The day the world went quiet. The city did not end with fire or thunder. It ended with silence. Arjun noticed it first as an absence. The usual sounds that defined his mornings, honking cars, street vendors shouting, the distant rumble of trains, were simply gone. At first, it felt peaceful, almost comforting, like the city had finally decided to rest. But silence, when it lasts too long, becomes something else entirely. It becomes a warning. He stood near the window of his 7th-floor apartment, coffee growing cold in his hand, staring at a road that should have been alive. Cars sat abandoned at odd angles, doors left open, one still blinking its indicator endlessly. A bus had crashed into a divider and been left there like a forgotten toy. No drivers, no passengers, no movement. The air smelled wrong. Smoke lingered, thin but persistent, mixing with a faint sweetness that made Arjun's stomach tighten. He didn't have the words for it yet, but somewhere deep inside, his body already knew. Rot. 3 days earlier, the news channels had been loud. Too loud. Experts arguing, politicians shouting, anchors repeating the same phrases again and again. Unidentified infection, civil unrest, isolated incidents. Social media had been worse. Videos uploaded by shaking hands, faces half visible, screams cutting off mid-recording. People collapsing, people biting, people not staying dead. Arjun had watched it all with growing unease, telling himself the same lie everyone else was telling themselves. It won't reach here. Now the screens were black. The power had gone sometime in the night. His phone showed no signal, no messages, no updates. Just a dead icon staring back at him. Arjun placed the phone on the table and noticed his hands were trembling. That was when he heard it. A sound from somewhere below. Slow, uneven. Drag. Arjun's breath caught. He moved away from the window quietly, each step careful, as if the floor itself might betray him. He grabbed the first thing that felt heavy enough to matter, a broken metal pipe from a chair leg, and held it like a lifeline. The sound came again. Closer, not footsteps, not quite. More like something being pulled along the ground without care or pain. Then a low groan followed, stretched and hollow, as if the thing making it had forgotten how to finish a sound. Arjun backed toward the bedroom, heart hammering so loudly it felt dangerous. The groan echoed through the building corridor, followed by another. And another. He knew that sound. Everyone did. The scratching started at his door. Fingernails dragged slowly across wood. Not frantic, not desperate, patient, curious. Arjun stood frozen, metal pipe raised uselessly, every muscle locked. The scratching stopped. For one horrifying moment, he thought it had left. Then came the knock. Not a human knock. More like a head leaning forward and gently tapping against the door, again and again, testing. Arjun pressed a hand over his mouth to keep from making a sound. His lungs burned, His vision narrowed. Seconds stretched into eternity. Finally, the presence moved away. The dragging sound faded down the corridor, followed by a chorus of distant groans, rising and falling like a sick imitation of breath. Only when his knees gave way did Arjun realize he had survived his first encounter. By afternoon, the building had begun to smell like death. Arjun stepped into the corridor carefully, peering around corners, pipe clenched tightly. Blood smeared the walls near the stairwell, dark and drying. A trail led downward, ending abruptly at the stairs. Someone had tried to escape. He didn't follow the trail. The staircase was dim, emergency lights flickering weakly. On the third floor, a door hung open, its hinges twisted. Inside, furniture lay overturned, walls marked with desperate handprints. Arjun moved past quickly, refusing to imagine the sounds that had filled that space hours earlier. When he reached the ground floor, his stomach turned. The main entrance was destroyed. Glass covered the floor like shattered ice. Outside, the city looked like a painting left out in the rain, blurred, burning, ruined. A body lay near the curb. Arjun forced himself to look. The man's chest had been torn open, ribs exposed, flesh chewed ragged. His eyes stared upward, lifeless. Flies gathered thickly, buzzing with obscene energy. Something moved nearby. Across the street, between two cars, a figure straightened slowly. It had once been a man. Half his face was gone, jaw hanging loose, skin torn and gray. One eye remained, cloudy but focused. It looked directly at Arjun. The thing tilted its head, listening. Arjun stepped back. The zombie screamed. The sound was wet, broken, wrong, and it echoed down the street like a signal flare. From alleys, buildings, cars, the dead answered. Arjun ran. He didn't know where he was going. Direction didn't matter anymore. Only distance. His lungs burned as he ducked between cars, nearly slipping on blood-slick pavement. Groans rose behind him, multiplied footsteps, dragging faster now. He smashed through the glass of a medical store and rolled inside, shoving a shelf against the door just as bodies slammed into it. The impact shook the entire shop. Hands pressed against the glass. Faces appeared, mouths opening and closing, teeth snapping uselessly. Arjun collapsed behind the counter, gasping, tears streaming down his face without him noticing. His whole body shook as the dead battered the store, shelves crashing, glass cracking. After long minutes, the noise began to fade. Something louder somewhere else had drawn them away. Silence returned. This time it was worse. Arjun stood slowly and searched the store, grabbing water, bandages, painkillers, anything useful. In the back room, behind a torn curtain, he found a man sitting on the floor, clutching a knife. The man looked up, eyes wild. "Don't come closer," he whispered. "I'm not infected," Arjun said quietly. The man laughed, a broken sound. "None of us were At first, before Arjun could respond, a scream echoed outside, human, terrified. Then it stopped. The man began to cry. Arjun turned away. He understood the rule now. This wasn't about saving the world. It wasn't even about saving each other. It was about surviving the next minute. As night fell and the groans returned, louder and closer than before, Arjun tightened his grip on the metal pipe and whispered the only truth left in this ruined city. Stay quiet. Stay hidden. Stay alive. Because the dead were no longer wandering. They were learning. Chapter 2. When night learned to hunt. Night did not arrive like it used to. There was no calm sunset. No soft darkness settling over the city. The night came like a lid being slammed shut, trapping everything alive inside with what was already dead. Arjun felt it the moment the sky darkened, as if the air itself had grown heavier, thicker, harder to breathe. Inside the medical store, silence felt dangerous. The man in the back room, rakish, sat against the wall, knife still clenched in his hand. His eyes darted toward every sound, every shifting shadow. Arjun understood the fear in that look. Night changed things. During the day, the dead wandered. At night, they listened. Outside, the city groaned. Not one sound, many layered, moving. Arjun peered through a crack in the boarded window. Fires burned unchecked in the distance, casting flickering orange light that revealed silhouettes shambling through smoke-filled streets. Zombies clustered together now, no longer scattered randomly. They moved in loose groups, pausing, turning their heads in unison when something caught their attention. "They're different," Rakish whispered. "They weren't like this yesterday." Arjun nodded. He had noticed it too. The infected reacted faster. They followed patterns. When one found something, others arrived within seconds, drawn by sound or scent, or something else entirely. A crash echoed nearby. Glass shattered, then screaming. "Human." Close. Rakish stood up instinctively. "Someone needs help." Arjun grabbed his arm. "No." The scream cut off abruptly, replaced by wet, tearing sounds and frantic growls. Rakish sank back against the wall, covering his face. "They learn," he whispered again. "God help us, they learn." They waited until the noise faded before moving. Arjun knew staying in one place was suicide. Sound carried farther at night, and the medical store was already compromised. They packed what they could: water, bandages, painkillers, and slipped out through the back door into a narrow alley. The alley stank of garbage and decay. Rats scattered as they moved, disappearing into cracks and shadows. Arjun held the pipe ready, every muscle tense. Somewhere above them, a zombie groaned, followed by another answering call. Rakish stepped on a loose bottle. The clink echoed like a gunshot. Everything went still. Then the groans came rushing toward them. "Run," Arjun hissed. They sprinted down the alley as figures emerged from doorways and fire escapes. drawn instantly by the sound. A zombie dropped from a second-story balcony, landing awkwardly, but getting up far too quickly. "They're faster," Rakish shouted. Arjun didn't respond. He couldn't spare the breath. They burst onto a side street, just as a group of zombies turned toward them as one. Eyes locked, mouths opened. The scream that followed wasn't one voice. It was many, overlapping, a chorus of hunger. They ducked into an abandoned apartment building, slamming the door shut and shoving furniture against it. Bodies crashed against the other side almost immediately. Hands forced through cracks, fingers snapping uselessly. Arjun dragged Rakish up the stairs, skipping steps, heart pounding in his ears. By the third floor, Rakish stumbled. "Go," he gasped. "I can't." Arjun hauled him up by the arm. "Not yet." They barricaded themselves inside a small flat, pushing a wardrobe against the door. The room smelled of dust and mold. Outside, zombies clawed and moaned, but after several minutes, the noise lessened. They were losing interest, or learning patience. Hours passed in darkness. Rakish sat shaking, staring at the knife in his hand. "I left my family," he said suddenly. "Went out for medicine. Came back to this." Arjun didn't know what to say. A distant explosion shook the building, followed by the roar of a helicopter. Hope flared painfully in Arjun's chest as he rushed to the window. The helicopter hovered briefly above the city, spotlight sweeping across rooftops. Below, people waved cloths, mirrors, anything to be seen. Then something struck the helicopter. It tilted sharply. Smoke poured from its side. The aircraft spiraled, crashing into a building 2 blocks away in a ball of fire. The screaming that followed was worse than silence. Rakish laughed hysterically. "No one's coming," he said. "We're already dead." Just before dawn, Arjun heard something new. A child crying. It came from the floor below, faint but unmistakably human. Arjun froze. Every instinct screamed trap, but the sound tugged at something he thought had already died inside him. Rakish shook his head violently. "Don't. It's a trick." "It's a child," Arjun said. "They imitate," Rakish whispered. "I saw one making sounds like a woman screaming." The crying continued. Arjun moved anyway. They descended carefully, weapons raised. In a classroom-sized apartment room, they found a small girl crouched under a desk, face streaked with dirt and tears. 2 bodies lay nearby her parents, already turning. Arjun covered the child's mouth as zombies scraped past the hallway door. They waited in total darkness for hours. When the dead finally moved on, the girl clung to Arjun, shaking. "Don't leave me," she whispered. Her name was Meera. Morning revealed a city unrecognizable. Bodies littered the streets. Smoke hung low, choking the air. Zombies roamed in organized groups now, blocking intersections, reacting instantly to movement. On a rooftop across the street, soldiers appeared masked, armed. "Safe zone," One shouted through a megaphone. Metro station. Evacuation in progress. Hope struck again. They moved quickly, staying low, keeping Meera silent. Near the metro entrance, gunfire erupted. Zombies poured out of tunnels like insects. Rakesh tripped. A zombie fell on him instantly. Rakesh screamed Arjun's name once. Then nothing. Arjun grabbed Meera and ran. By nightfall, they hid inside a collapsed office building. Arjun sealed the doors, hands shaking. Meera sat silently beside him, eyes too old for her face. They took everyone, she whispered. Arjun stared into the darkness beyond the windows, listening to endless groans echoing through the city. No, he said softly, we're still here. But deep down, he knew the truth. The night no longer belonged to the living. It belonged to the dead, and they were only getting better at hunting. Chapter 3. They were never meant to die. Morning did not bring relief. It brought clarity. From the shattered window of the office building, Arjun watched the city move, not randomly, not blindly. The dead flowed through the streets like a slow, diseased current, redirecting themselves toward sound, toward motion, toward life. They were not wandering anymore. They were coordinating. Meera sat beside him, knees pulled to her chest, eyes following the same movements. She did not cry now. Children learned fast in broken worlds. We can't stay, Arjun said softly. Meera nodded. They come back to places. She was right. Zombies circled buildings they had already searched, returning again and again, as if checking memory. That thought chilled Arjun more than their speed. They waited until a distant explosion drew most of the dead away, then slipped out through a rear stairwell and into the streets. Arjun kept to shadows, signaling Meera when to move, when to freeze. She followed perfectly, silent as smoke. They hadn't gone far when they heard voices. Human voices. Arjun crouched instantly, pulling Meera down behind a burned car. Across the street, 3 men moved cautiously, carrying backpacks and crude weapons. One held a pistol, another a machete, the third a metal rod like Arjun. Survivors. Hope flared, but Arjun crushed it quickly. Hope had gotten too many people killed. The men spotted them. Hey, one whispered urgently. We're not infected. Arjun hesitated, then slowly raised his empty hand. Neither are we. They approached carefully, eyes constantly scanning. Up close, the men looked exhausted, filthy, desperate. One of them, tall, thin, nervous, kept glancing behind Arjun and Meera, fingers twitching near his weapon. We're heading east, the man with the pistol said. There's a hospital, still running generators. Might be safe. Might. That word carried too much weight now. Any kids there? Meera asked quietly. The men exchanged looks. Some, the pistol man said after a pause. Arjun noticed the hesitation. Still, moving together meant better odds. Against his instincts, he agreed. They traveled in silence, sticking to back streets, avoiding open intersections. Twice they froze as fast-moving infected sprinted past, not chasing them, but moving with purpose towards something else. They run now, Meera whispered. Yes, Arjun replied. Only when they want to. The hospital appeared in the distance, partially intact, windows boarded, a generator humming faintly. Armed figures stood at the entrance, signaling survivors inside quickly. Relief surged, too quickly. As they crossed the final street, a scream erupted behind them. The thin man dropped suddenly, clutching his leg. Blood poured through his fingers. A bite. Fresh. Don't stop, he shouted, panic breaking his voice. Please don't leave me. Zombies emerged instantly, drawn by sound and blood. The pistol man raised his weapon, then hesitated. He's infected, the machete man said coldly. We can't risk it. The bitten man looked at Arjun, eyes wild. Help me. Arjun felt time slow. Every instinct screamed the same truth. There was no cure. The pistol fired. The shot echoed across the street, impossibly loud. The bitten man fell still. Silence followed for half a second. Then the city screamed back. Zombies poured from everywhere. Run, Arjun shouted. They barely made it inside the hospital as guards slammed the gates shut. The dead crashed against the barriers, snarling, clawing, shrieking with rage. Inside, chaos ruled. Dozens of survivors crowded hallways. Some cried, some prayed, some stared blankly at walls. Soldiers tried to maintain order, but fear moved faster than authority. A woman screamed nearby. A man convulsed on the floor. Then Arjun saw it. A patient strapped to a bed behind glass, restrained, veins black, eyes twitching violently. Doctors watched from behind masks, scribbling notes. What is that? Meera asked. A nurse glanced at them, eyes hollow. Phase 3. Arjun's blood ran cold. Phase. The nurse swallowed. They didn't die. Not really. The infection rewired them. Aggression centers, sensory processing, memory fragments. They're adapting. Arjun stared at the thrashing figure. This wasn't an accident. No, the nurse whispered. It was a test. Before Arjun could ask more, alarms blared. A guard shouted, breach. Gunfire erupted near the entrance. Screams followed. The gates buckled. Zombies flooded in. But something was different. Some of them dodged bullets. Some moved straight for armed guards. Some screamed commands, broken, distorted sounds that made other infected change direction instantly. They're leading each other, Meera whispered in horror. The hospital collapsed into panic. Arjun grabbed Meera's hand and ran. They escaped through a service tunnel just as the building filled with screams. Behind them, the sounds of tearing flesh and gunfire merged into something unrecognizable. Outside, the city waited. Arjun stopped only when his lungs burned beyond pain. He pressed Meera against a wall, scanning their surroundings. She looked up at him. They didn't die because they were sick. He nodded slowly. They were changed. Meera's voice trembled. Does that mean we could change too? Arjun didn't answer, because he didn't know, and that terrified him more than the dead ever had. As night approached once again, the city seemed to lean closer, listening, learning, preparing, and somewhere within it, something far worse than zombies was waking up. Chapter 4. The ONES Who Control the Dead. The city felt different after the hospital. Not quieter, not louder. Watching, Arjun sensed it as they moved through the streets, an awareness, like something had shifted its attention toward them. The dead no longer rushed blindly. They paused, turned, adjusted, as if reacting to signals Arjun couldn't hear. Meera noticed it too. They stop when we stop, she whispered. Arjun slowed his breathing, forcing his heart to calm. Ahead, a cluster of zombies stood at an intersection, heads tilted in unison. None moved, none attacked. They simply waited. Then, as if on command, they turned and walked away together. Arjun felt ice settle in his stomach. They're being guided, he murmured. They took shelter inside a half-collapsed shopping complex, its upper floors caved in, lower levels dark and silent. Inside, candles flickered. Humans, at least 20 survivors, occupied the space, armed, organized, calm in a way that felt unnatural. A man stepped forward, tall, clean compared to the rest, eyes sharp. You took your time, he said. Arjun raised the pipe slowly. We didn't know anyone was here. The man smiled faintly. That's the point. They were searched, disarmed, questioned. Meera stayed close to Arjun, silent but alert. The group called themselves the Keepers, former military, scientists, civilians who had survived the early days by understanding one thing before everyone else. The infected were not random. They followed signals, sound, scent, and something else, frequency. They respond to low-range signals, the man explained later, introducing himself as Vikram. We discovered it accidentally. Certain machines, generators, even human voices at specific tones can redirect them. You control them, Arjun asked. Vikram shook his head. Control is a strong word. Influence is more accurate. Meera frowned, like herding animals. Vikram didn't correct her. That night, Arjun watched as one of the keepers tested a device, small, humming softly. Outside the complex, zombies shifted direction instantly, moving away from the building. Arjun's chest tightened. Why isn't everyone doing this? Vikram's smile vanished. Because if everyone learns, this world collapses completely. Later, Arjun overheard whispers. A deal. The keepers traded safety for silence. They diverted hordes toward other survivor groups to protect themselves. Sacrifice as strategy. Arjun confronted Vikram. You're feeding them people. Vikram didn't deny it. Survival isn't clean. That night, screams echoed from a distant block. Zombies moved away from the complex. Toward the screams, Meera covered her ears. "They're killing them," she whispered. "On purpose." Arjun made a decision. They would leave at first light. They never got the chance. An alarm sounded inside the complex, not mechanical. Human panic. The device, someone shouted, "It's offline." The hum died. Silence. Then the groans returned, closer than ever. The dead surged toward the complex, drawn back by sound, scent, and something worse. Betrayal erupted instantly. Someone shoved Meera aside, trying to escape first. Arjun struck him with the pipe. Zombies smashed through shattered entrances as the keepers turned on one another. The system collapsed in seconds. Order vanished. Vikram ran toward the control room. "Come with me," he shouted. Arjun didn't trust him, but staying meant death. They followed. Inside the control room, screens flickered, showing thermal feeds of the city. Red dots, hundreds closing in. "They're learning faster than we predicted," Vikram said, voice shaking. "They're adapting to the signals." A new sound rose outside. Not groaning. Command. A sharp, distorted scream echoed once. Every zombie stopped. Then they moved together, straight toward the control room. Meera whispered, terrified. That wasn't a machine. Arjun realized the truth. Something among the dead was directing them. Something aware. The door buckled inward. Vikram grabbed a gun. "We can still." A shadow slammed through the doorway. Not slow, not clumsy. It looked at them and smiled. The lights went out. Chapter 5, The Alpha. Darkness did not mean safety. It meant permission. The lights died with a sound like a breath being cut short, plunging the control room into black. For half a second, nothing moved. Then the screams began, close, overlapping, panicked. The door bowed inward again, metal screaming as if alive. Arjun pulled Meera behind him, pipe raised, pulse hammering so hard it hurt. The shadow in the doorway stepped forward. It moved wrong, not the clumsy lurch of the infected, not the frantic rush of the newly turned. This thing advanced with balance, posture straight, head steady. Its eyes reflected faint red from the emergency LEDs, focused, calculating. It smiled. A sound rose behind it, sharp and broken, like a command spoken through torn vocal cords. Outside the room, the dead answered instantly. The pounding multiplied. Walls shook. Vikram fired. The muzzle flash lit the room for a heartbeat. The bullet struck the Alpha's shoulder and spun it slightly. Then it straightened, unfazed. It looked at Vikram, head tilting in mild curiosity, as if assessing an object that had failed to perform. The Alpha lunged. Arjun barely saw it move. One moment, Vikram was raising the gun again. The next, the Alpha's hand was through his throat. Blood sprayed the control panels. Vikram collapsed, gurgling once before going still. Meera screamed. The Alpha turned toward the sound. Arjun swung the pipe with everything he had. Metal cracked against skull. The impact should have dropped anything human. The Alpha staggered, then laughed. A wet, fractured laugh, but unmistakably deliberate. It backhanded Arjun across the room. He hit the wall hard, air exploding from his lungs. Meera scrambled toward him, sobbing. The Alpha stepped closer, slow now, savoring. Another command scream ripped from its throat. The door burst open. Zombies poured in. Arjun grabbed Meera and rolled as bodies crashed where they had been. Teeth snapped inches from his arm. He shoved Meera toward a side passage and ran after her, slamming a maintenance door behind them. Hands forced through the crack immediately. They ran blind through narrow corridors, emergency lights flickering. Screams echoed everywhere, survivors dying, metal tearing, the dead celebrating. Down, Arjun shouted. They slid under a closing fire door as zombies slammed into it from the other side. The door held barely. They didn't stop. Stairs, smoke, heat. They burst out onto a service ramp behind the complex. Night air hit them like ice. The city beyond was alive, with movement hordes shifting, redirecting, flowing toward the complex, as if pulled by gravity. The Alpha stood silhouetted on a broken balcony above, watching. It raised one hand. The dead changed direction, instantly. They came for Arjun and Meera. They ran until the city itself became an obstacle course, collapsed storefronts, overturned buses, fire spilling across streets. Arjun's lungs burned. Meera stumbled, kept going, stumbled again. A fast infected sprinted from an alley. Arjun swung the pipe. Bone cracked. The thing fell, but another replaced it immediately, then another. The dead were hunting in packs now, funneling prey. They ducked into an underground parking structure. Darkness swallowed them. Arjun slammed a barrier down, wedging it with a fallen beam. For a moment, there was only their breathing. Then footsteps above. Measured calm. The Alpha dropped into the structure with a heavy thud, landing on its feet like a trained animal. Its head turned, listening, smelling. Arjun felt something break inside him. This thing wasn't just infected. It was aware. The Alpha walked slowly, dragging a finger along a concrete pillar, producing a high, painful screech. Zombies gathered at the entrance, waiting. Meera clutched Arjun's arm. It's playing. Yes, Arjun whispered, and it's winning. He scanned the garage. A fuel truck lay on its side, leaking. A maintenance box hung open, sparks flickering. An idea formed, desperate and final. Meera, he said softly, when I tell you to run, don't look back. No, she whispered, eyes filling. I won't leave you. You will, he said, because I need you alive. The Alpha stopped, sensing the shift. Its smile widened. Arjun stepped into view. The Alpha's eyes locked onto him. It raised its hand again, then paused. Curious, Arjun shouted and hurled the pipe past the Alpha, smashing the maintenance box. Sparks rained. Fuel ignited. Fire roared across the floor. The Alpha leapt back as flames surged between them, cutting off the Horde's path. Arjun grabbed Meera and sprinted through a side exit as the parking structure filled with smoke and screaming, human and otherwise. Behind them, the Alpha screamed, not in pain, in rage. They collapsed inside a derelict warehouse miles away, sealing the doors with chains. Dawn crept in pale and unforgiving. Meera sat shaking, wrapped in a blanket Arjun had scavenged. Arjun stared at his hands, still trembling. They follow it, Meera said quietly, like it's their leader. Arjun nodded. An Alpha. Can it be killed? Arjun thought of the bullet, the pipe, the fire. I don't know, he said, but it can be slowed. Outside, distant screams rose, then stopped. The city adjusted. Meera looked up. It chose us. Arjun closed his eyes. No, it tested us. He stood and checked the barricades. The world had changed again. Rules rewritten by something smarter than hunger. They weren't just surviving zombies anymore. They were being hunted, and the hunter could think. Chapter 6. The world had more than one monster. The warehouse did not feel safe. It felt quiet in the way. A held breath feels quiet. Arjun woke before dawn, the habit carved into him by fear. Meera slept against a stack of crates, wrapped in a torn blanket, chest rising and falling unevenly. For a moment, watching her breathe was the only thing anchoring him to the idea that the world had not completely ended. Outside, the city murmured. Not screams, not chaos. Movement. Arjun climbed a rusted ladder to a broken window near the roof and looked out. Dawn painted the sky gray and lifeless. Streets below were not empty, but they were organized. Zombies stood in clusters, not wandering, not attacking each other, simply waiting. They were positioned. That was when Arjun realized the truth. They're guarding routes, he whispered, as if summoned by the thought. A sharp, distorted cry echoed from somewhere far away. It was not the Alpha's scream from the night before, but it was similar. The sound rippled across the city like a signal. Instantly, several zombie groups shifted direction, moving together toward a distant block. Meera stirred. That wasn't the same one. Arjun turned slowly. No. Her eyes widened. There's more. The idea hit him harder than any blow. One Alpha had nearly killed them. More than one meant the infection wasn't accidental leadership. It was structure. Hierarchy. They left the warehouse an hour later, moving through back alleys and collapsed buildings. Arjun avoided main roads now, reading the city like a map of danger. Where zombies clustered quietly, something was controlling them. Where streets were empty, something worse had already passed through. They encountered survivors near midday. A small group, 6 people waving cloth from a rooftop. They looked desperate, hungry, exhausted. We're safe up here, a woman shouted, food and water inside. Arjun froze. Everything about the scene felt wrong. too open, too loud. Zombies nearby didn't react to the shouting. "They want us to come closer," Meera whispered. Before Arjun could respond, another scream echoed, closer this time. The same distorted command sound. The zombies below moved, not toward the shouting, toward the exits. Arjun's blood ran cold. It's a trap. The survivors on the rooftop began screaming for real as zombies poured into the building from every side, herded there deliberately. The Alpha didn't need bait. It used people. Meera turned away, tears streaking her face. "It's teaching them." Arjun pulled her close, "and it's watching who learns." By evening, they reached the outskirts of the city, where buildings thinned and open ground began. For the first time since the collapse, Arjun saw the horizon clearly. It was worse. Smoke rose from multiple points, too evenly spaced to be random. Movement patterns showed the same thing repeating across miles. Alphas controlling zones, dividing territory. This wasn't an outbreak anymore. It was a takeover. They took shelter in an abandoned toll station. Inside, Arjun found maps pinned to the wall, old evacuation plans, military routes. Someone had been here recently. Someone organized. Footsteps echoed outside. Arjun raised the pipe. A voice followed. "Easy, we're alive." 3 people stepped into view, armed, alert, disciplined. One wore a torn military jacket with faded insignia. Another carried a radio. The third watched Meera carefully, not unkindly. "We track alphas," the soldier said. "Name Captain Rao." Arjun felt a surge of cautious hope. "You've seen more than one." Rao nodded grimly. 7 confirmed, maybe more. Meera whispered, "They're not the top." Rao looked at her sharply. "What do you mean?" "They answer to something," she said, "like soldiers." Silence followed. Rao exhaled slowly. "Then we're already late." He pointed to the map. Red circles marked different sectors. "They're not just hunting," Rao continued. "They're securing resources, power stations, water plants, communication hubs." Arjun understood. "They're preparing." "For something big," Rao said. A distant scream echoed, deeper, longer, more commanding than any before. Every zombie in sight froze, then turned. Rao's face drained of color. "That's not an alpha." Meera clutched Arjun's arm. "Then what is it?" Rao met Arjun's eyes. "That's a general." The ground seemed to vibrate as the sound carried across the land. Whatever was coming next wasn't just learning. It was planning. Chapter 7. The General Speaks. The sound did not fade. It lingered in the air long after it was made, vibrating through concrete, metal, bone. Arjun felt it in his teeth, in his chest, in the hollow place behind his eyes where fear lived now. Every zombie in sight had frozen at once, heads tilted in the same direction, bodies rigid like statues, awaiting orders. Captain Rao lowered his binoculars slowly. "That wasn't noise," he said. "That was communication." Meera swallowed. It sounded deliberate. Rao nodded grimly. It was. They watched from the toll station as the impossible happened. Hundreds of infected moved at once, not rushing, not stumbling, repositioning with military precision. Groups split and reformed, lanes opened, intersections cleared. Fast infected ran ahead as scouts. Slow ones filled gaps, blocking escape routes. Arjun's hands clenched into fists. They're executing maneuvers. Yes, Rao said, and we're inside the operation zone. They retreated deeper into the station, sealing metal shutters quietly. Rao's team moved with practiced discipline, assigning watches, checking weapons, rationing ammo. These people had survived by understanding one thing early. The dead were not stupid. They weren't always like this, Rao said later, sitting against a concrete pillar. First week, they were chaos. Second week, patterns. Third week, leadership. Meera looked at him, and now. Rao hesitated. Now they're building something. That night they listened, not to groans, to silence. The city outside had gone eerily quiet, as if the dead themselves were holding their breath. Arjun lay awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, replaying every moment since the Alpha. He realized something then. Every time they escaped, the enemy adjusted, like it was learning them. Near dawn, Rao's radio crackled to life. Static, then a voice. Not human. Not entirely. Zone secured. Rao's face went pale. They're using our frequencies. The voice continued, distorted, layered, as if multiple throats spoke together. Resource confirmed, resistance noted. Meera's breath hitched. It's talking. No, Rao said quietly. It's reporting. A new sound followed, the same deep command note as before, but closer now. The toll station vibrated as infected shifted positions around it. Rao stood. We move now. They escaped through an underground service tunnel as zombies sealed the roads above. The tunnel opened into an industrial sector, factories, silos, abandoned research buildings. Rao stopped abruptly, staring at a rusted sign half buried in weeds. Biogenesis Research Facility. Restricted. Arjun felt cold. This is where it started. Rao nodded slowly. Unofficial site, government funded, off the books. Meera stared at the buildings. They didn't mean to cure anything, did they? No, Rao said. They meant to enhance it. Inside the facility, files littered the floors. Broken containment units. Surgical rooms stained dark. Arjun scanned documents as Rao kept watch. Neural retention, motor amplification, hierarchical response. Meera whispered. They kept parts of the brain alive. They improved them, Rao said. Leadership, memory, obedience. A crash echoed above them. Then footsteps. Heavy calm. Measured. The general entered the room. It was taller than the Alpha. Its posture straight, uniform remnants clinging to its frame. Its eyes were clear, not clouded. A scar crossed its face where something had once tried to stop it. It looked at them and spoke. Observation complete. Arjun felt his knees weaken. You adapt, the general continued, voice fractured but controlled. Acceptable variables. Meera clutched Arjun's arm. It knows. Rao raised his weapon. You were human. The general tilted its head. Correction. I was improved. It raised one hand. Every zombie outside the facility went silent. The general's gaze fixed on Arjun. You resist well. Resistance is useful. Arjun forced himself to speak. Useful for what? For the next phase. The lights flickered. Alarms blared. Old systems reactivated. The general stepped back toward the exit. Survive, it said. We are watching who deserves to. Then it was gone. The zombies outside moved again. Not attacking, guarding. Meera whispered, shaking. It let us live. Rao's voice was hollow. No, it marked us. Arjun stared at the exit where the general had stood. The apocalypse was no longer random. It had a command structure, and they were now part of its calculations. Chapter 8. The war that humans forgot how to fight. The general did not chase them. That terrified Arjun more than pursuit ever could. They moved through the industrial sector in silence. Rao leading them through routes only someone with military instincts could read. Broken fences, blind corners, dead zones where sound didn't carry far. Meera stayed close, her eyes sharp, watching shadows the way others watched the sky. They're letting us go, she said finally. Rao nodded. Predators don't always kill immediately. Sometimes they study. They reached an underground transit hub long abandoned. Its walls marked with old evacuation signs and newer bloodstains. Inside, lanterns glowed softly. More survivors, dozens this time, armed, organized, divided. A woman stepped forward, rifle slung across her back, hair tied tight. Her eyes were hard but alert. Captain Rao, she said, didn't think you'd make it. Rao exhaled. Lieutenant Sen still breathing, I see. This group is called the Line, Sen explained to Arjun later. We don't run. We don't hide. We hold ground. Arjun looked around. People cleaned weapons, mapped routes, argued quietly. Against that, he asked. Against generals. Sen's jaw tightened. We've killed an alpha. That got everyone's attention. How? Arjun asked. Fire, collapse. Overkill, Sen said. And we lost 20 people doing it. Rao leaned over the map, spread on a crate. There's a general coordinating the central zones. Sen nodded grimly. We know, we call it command. Meera spoke up. It talks. Silence fell. Sen looked at her sharply. You heard it. It spoke to us, Meera said, like it was evaluating. Sen exchanged a glance with Rao. Then, it's worse than we thought. They planned through the night. The general had established a control point at a repurposed broadcasting tower. High ground, wide signal range. The Line believed the general used sound and low-frequency signals, amplified through the structure to coordinate hordes. If we take the tower, Sen said, we blind it. Rao shook his head. Or we draw everything in the city to us. That's why it has to be decisive, Sen replied. One shot, one collapse. Arjun listened, understanding the cost before anyone said it out loud. This is a suicide run, he said. Sen didn't deny it. Meera looked at Arjun, fear flickering behind her control. You don't have to go. Arjun knelt in front of her. I do, because if it keeps learning, there won't be anywhere left to run. She nodded slowly. Then I'm coming. No, Rao said firmly. Meera met his gaze. I've survived longer than most adults. I'm not baggage. Sen studied her, then nodded. She stays close to me. They moved at dawn. Smoke covered their approach. Fires set deliberately to mask sound and scent. Fast infected appeared first, scouting, but were silently taken down. For once, humans moved like predators. The tower loomed ahead, reinforced concrete, cables humming faintly. Then the general appeared. It stood at the tower's base, surrounded by alphas. Its head turned slightly as the line advanced, eyes locking instantly onto Arjun. Recognition. The general raised its hand. The city answered. Zombies poured from streets, buildings, underground tunnels, hundreds, then thousands, forming a living wall. Now, Sen shouted. Explosives detonated along the tower supports. The structure groaned. The allow frequency hum spiked violently, sending a wave of pain through everyone's skulls. Zombies staggered, confused. The general screamed, not in fear, in fury. It charged. Bullets tore into it, slowing but not stopping it. An alpha leapt forward, ripping a soldier apart. Screams filled the air. Arjun reached the control platform and slammed the final detonator. The tower collapsed. Concrete, steel, fire. The signal died. For one impossible moment, the dead stopped. Then the dust cleared. The general rose from the rubble, burned, cracked, smiling. It looked at Arjun through the smoke. Insufficient, it said. Then it screamed. The zombies surged again, wilder now, uncontrolled. Sen dragged Meera back as Arjun was thrown aside by the blast wave. The line retreated, broken, bleeding, shattered. The general did not pursue. It watched, learning. That night, they counted the survivors. Less than half remained. Sen sat against the wall, shaking. We failed. Rao stared into the dark. No, we learned. Meera looked at Arjun. It can be hurt. Yes, Arjun said, but it won't die easily. Outside, the city adjusted once more. The general had tested humanity's strength and found it wanting. Chapter 9. What the general was building. Failure had a sound. It was quieter than screaming, heavier than silence. Inside the underground hub, survivors moved like shadows, stepping around bodies wrapped in torn sheets. The air smelled of blood, smoke, and despair. Weapons lay untouched in corners. No one argued anymore. No one planned. The line had been broken. Arjun sat against a concrete pillar, staring at his hands. They wouldn't stop shaking. The tower had fallen. The signal had died. And still, the general had stood. Lieutenant Sen knelt nearby, scrubbing dried blood from her face again and again, as if she could erase what she had seen. Captain Rao stood apart, studying a cracked tablet recovered from the battlefield. His jaw was tight, eyes sharp, with a focus that felt dangerous. "They let us hit them," Rao said finally. Arjun looked up. "What?" Rao tapped the screen, pulling up distorted thermal footage from a drone that had survived long enough to transmit data. Red heat signatures, zombies, shifted into patterns. "They allowed the tower to fall," Rao continued. "The general didn't stop us." Sen shook her head. "It nearly died." "No," Rao said quietly. "It nearly learned." Meera, sitting beside Arjun, hugged her knees. "It wanted to see what we'd do." Silence followed. That idea was worse than defeat. They buried the dead at dawn. No speeches, no prayers, just quick hands and empty eyes. When it was done, half the survivors talked about leaving, scattering, going back to hiding. The other half talked about fighting harder. Neither sounded like hope. Inside a locked maintenance room, Rao gathered Arjun Sen and 2 engineers who had survived the collapse. He laid out recovered maps, intercepted signals, and satellite fragments. "What I'm about to show you," Rao said, "is why the general didn't kill us." The screens flickered to life. Images appeared grainy, but unmistakable. Massive open areas outside the city, construction zones, former military training grounds, industrial yards, zombies moving materials, metal beams, concrete slabs, vehicles dragged into position. "They're not destroying everything," Sen whispered. "They're building." "Yes," Rao said, "fortifications, zones, infrastructure." Meera stared. "For what?" Rao hesitated. "For permanence." Arjun felt cold spread through his chest. "You're saying this isn't just an invasion?" Rao nodded. "It's colonization." The general wasn't just coordinating attacks. It was organizing territory, establishing supply routes, creating defended zones where humans couldn't survive, but the infected could thrive. "They don't need cities the way we do," one engineer said. "They need control points." "And silence," Meera added softly. Rao looked at her sharply. "What do you mean?" "They don't scream unless they want to," she said. "They don't chase unless ordered. It's like they're conserving energy." Rao exhaled slowly. "Exactly." Another image appeared. A pit, deep, circular, guarded by alphas. Inside it, humans. Alive. Arjun stood abruptly. "What is that?" Rao's voice was flat, processing. Everyone stared. "They're not killing everyone," Rao continued. "They're selecting, testing resistance, stress tolerance, adaptability." Meera whispered, They're making more like it. No one corrected her. That night, the general appeared again. Not physically. On the radio, the same layered voice cut through static, calm and controlled. Trial complete. Survivors froze. Human resistance exceeds baseline acceptable. Rao grabbed the mic. You can hear us. A pause. Communication unnecessary. Meera stepped forward, voice steady despite the terror in her eyes. Why are you doing this? Another pause. Then, humanity is inefficient, fragmented, unsustainable. Arjun felt rage boil over. You were human. The reply came instantly. Correction, humanity was human. The radio crackled. We are continuity. Then silence. Afterward, no one spoke for a long time. Sen finally broke it. It thinks it's saving the world. Rao nodded by replacing us. Meera looked at Arjun. It won't stop. No, Arjun said. It's just getting started. He realized then why they were still alive. Not as survivors, as variables. The general was testing humanity's limits. And the next phase wouldn't be about hunting. It would be about selection. Outside, the city moved with new purpose. Structures rose where chaos once lived. The dead were no longer reacting. They were preparing. And somewhere within the expanding territory, something was waiting, not to kill humans, but to decide who deserved to exist. Chapter 10. The Choice to Become. They entered the processing zone before dawn. No alarms, no screams, just silence, so complete it felt engineered. Arjun felt it immediately, the wrongness of the place. The air smelled cleaner here, almost sterile, nothing like the rot-filled streets they had left behind. Tall concrete walls surrounded the zone, reinforced with scrap metal and vehicles welded into barriers. Zombies stood motionless at regular intervals, not guarding in the traditional sense, but present, as if their mere existence was enough. They're not watching us, Meera whispered. They're expecting us, Arjun replied. Captain Rao signaled for silence. The group moved carefully through a breach in the wall created days earlier during a skirmish. Inside, floodlights illuminated wide open pits dug deep into the earth. Conveyor belts ran slowly, carrying supplies downward. Humans alive worked below, guided by armed figures wearing improvised armor. Arjun's stomach twisted. They're not prisoners. No, Rao said quietly. They're collaborators. The humans moved without resistance, faces calm, eyes empty. Some wore headsets connected to crude signal devices. Others directed zombies with hand gestures and whistles tuned to specific frequencies. They're helping, Meera said, horrified. Before anyone could respond, a voice echoed across the zone. Do not hide. Observation requires clarity. The general stepped into view, atop a raised platform. Behind it stood several humans, clean, fed, unharmed. Chosen. One of them stepped forward. He was older, hair gray, posture confident. He wore a faded lab coat with military markings stitched over the chest. "I'm Dr. Harish Malhotra," he said calmly, "lead architect of Phase 4. Rao raised his weapon. "You did this." Malhotra smiled faintly. "I completed it." Arjun felt rage surge. "You helped them kill millions." Malhotra shook his head. "No, I helped prevent extinction." Meera stared at him. "By replacing us. By improving what survives," Malhotra replied. "Look around you. Chaos ended here. No hunger, no panic, no lies." The general watched silently. "These people volunteered," Malhotra continued. "They chose structure over fear, continuity over collapse." Rao stepped forward. "You're a traitor." Malhotra's eyes hardened. "I'm a realist." He gestured toward the pit. "The infected aren't mindless. They're optimized, freed from inefficiency, emotion, self-destruction." Arjun shouted, "They're monsters." Malhotra met his gaze evenly. "So were humans." The general spoke then. "Human integration progressing." Meera felt cold. "You're turning people into them." Malhotra nodded. "Selective integration. Not everyone survives the process." Rao fired. The bullet struck Malhotra's chest. He didn't fall. A figure stepped in front of him, human, but altered. Veins dark, eyes sharp, still thinking. "Phase 5, Malhotra said softly. The altered human moved impossibly fast, disarming Rao in seconds. Zombies advanced, not attacking, containing. The general stepped closer to Arjun. "You adapt well." Arjun raised his fists, despite the futility. "I'll never join you." The general tilted its head. "Not all must." It turned to Meera. "But some choose." Meera felt every eye on her. She shook her head violently. "No." The general paused. "Observation incomplete." Malhotra sighed. "Pity. She would have survived longer." Arjun lunged. Chaos erupted. Explosions rocked the pit as the line's remaining fighters struck from hidden positions. Smoke filled the zone. Zombies staggered, confused by overlapping signals. Arjun grabbed Meera and ran. Behind them, Malhotra watched calmly as the general issued new commands. "This was never about winning," Malhotra said softly into the chaos. "It was about evolution." They escaped through collapsing tunnels as fire swallowed the processing zone. Outside, the city screamed again for the first time in days. But Arjun knew the truth. They hadn't destroyed the system. They had only forced it to adapt. Meera whispered, breathless, "Some people chose this." Arjun nodded grimly. "And more will." Behind them, the general stood amid fire and ruin, unbothered. It had lost a facility, but gained data, and now it knew something vital. Humans didn't just break. They converted. Chapter 11. When humans turned on each other, the escape did not feel like victory. It felt like exile. Arjun, Meera, Captain Rao, or Bakkach survivors, Ek Purane Drainage Complex Miguzge Gendagi, Andhara, or Pani Kaibadbu Sibara Hua. Upar shehar fur si cheek rahatha. Lekin niche surf sans, or dard kai awas thai. Kuibat nahikar rahatha. Harkoi sak rahatha. Processing zone kibad. Ek cheese, saf ho chuki thai. Zombies sabs, bada katra nahida. Log the. Rauni sabko roka ek sealed chamber me. Yahin rukenj, usnikaha. Signal weak high. Alpha access limited. Limited ek survivor hansa. Binakashiki. Parkadam nahai. Mirachup bathai rahai. Zamin ko dekti hui. Arjan ni notice kia. Wodar mi nahai thai. Wosak rahai thai. Or yibat asdara rahai thai. Kuch gant bod. Bahas shuru hogei. Melhatra galat nahai tha. Ek admi bolus. Nam tha samir. Cam si cam wehen system tha. Order tha. Arjan ni. Uskur ki deka. Order jismi log process ke I jot hain. Samir ka galatite hogia. Or yehen kaya hai. Book. Bagna. Ras marna. Du or log usk. Side mi aage. Rauni hoth uthia. Baz. Par damage ho chukatha. Log du hisso. Mi bant ratha. Jo ladna chat the. Or jo system chat the. Mirani dirsi bolus. Unhon dar ka feda uthia. Sabni uski teraf deka. General ni humara nahai. Miraboli. Usni choisti. Logon ni kutchuna. Samir ni uski teraf. Isharakia. Or agar wo sahiho. Arjun kakun garam hogia. Tumke ra ho ki humbai. Ki humbai bak sacked hain. Samir beach mi bolus. Silence. Fur ek gunshot. Samir samin par gurgia. Sab jamge. Rau ki hoth mi banduk thai. Civil war yehen kadam hodi hai. Rauni tandi awaz mi kaha. Agles shabt ki soth. Kissini or kuch nahi bolus. Par trust mar jugatha. Us rot Meera so nahi pei. Arjan ni dekawo ek kon mi bathai thai. Kud si bot kardi hui. Tum thik ho usni pucha. Mirani upar deka. Agar general sahai ho. Arjan ka dil dubgia. Tumbai. Nahai mirani tirant kaha. Parwo sawal puchna band nahi hoda. Usni upna sir packet lia. Agar survive karn kile. Kuch bana paid jo hum nahi hain. Tukaya survival kamatlab hai. Arjan ki pause. Jo up nahi tha. Sabaek or sachloai. Unki group. Misidu log gay up the. Footprints tunnel ki bahar yaratha. Or unki sothek. Device tha signal tuner. Rauni diwar par mukamara. They defected. Mirani dirsikaha. General ni pale high deklia tha. Arjan ko samaj agia. Isliai usni. Hum zinda ch hoda. Wolad rah nahitha. Wo fracture car ratha. Uzi din sham ko radio zinda hua. Integration successful. Same layered voice. General. Human conflict acceptable. Rauni Mike Uthya. Tum logon kotad raho. Ek pause. Hum surf darpen hain. Mirakachera safed padgia. Yhum hai hum dika raha hai. Jotut jadahai wo kabhai ek naitha. Transmission band hogia. Us rot zombies. Attack nahai kar ratha. Wo dor kadde, jays in tezer kar raho, rouni map spread kia, ek hai rastabaka hai usnikaha, north zone, old military bunker, wehen kaya hai, arjani pucha, rouni sita deka, truth, mirani sur uthia, or choice, arjan kolaga jays, shaharni sans rokiho, general co-fight, nahai chahiai thai, use decision, chahiai tha, or a glad decision, unka hoga. Chapter 12. The truth buried under steel. The bunker did not welcome them. It waited. The entrance lay hidden beneath layers of collapsed concrete and rusted metal, its presence betrayed only by a faded military insignia, half buried in mud. Rao forced the door open using an old override key salvaged from the research facility. The hinges screamed in protest, echoing deep into the underground. Everyone froze. No groans followed. No movement. That silence felt intentional. Inside, the bunker was intact, power humming faintly, lights flickering to life one by one as emergency systems detected movement. The air was dry, filtered, clean. Too clean. Arjun felt his skin crawl. This place was never abandoned, he said quietly. Rao nodded. It was sealed. They moved deeper, passing rows of old monitors, medical bays, and observation rooms. Names were still printed on doors, dates still visible. Project continuity, phase 0. Meera stopped walking. Her breathing changed. Meera, Arjun asked. She didn't answer. In the central chamber, they found the truth. Screens lit up automatically, recognizing Meera's presence. Data streams began scrolling. Genetic maps, neural scans, familiar patterns. Rao stared. Why are the systems responding to her? Meera stepped forward slowly, as if pulled by gravity. Because I've been here before. Arjun's heart slammed. What? Her voice trembled. I don't remember it, not fully, but I recognize it. A recording played. A younger version of Dr. Harish Malhotra appeared on screen. Subject shows extraordinary neural resilience, Malhotra said. Adaptive empathy combined with analytical suppression. Perfect bridge candidate. Arjun felt sick. Bridge between what? Rao finished the thought. Between humans and them. Meera sank into a chair. They didn't just create the infection. They designed leaders, Rao said, and interfaces. The general wasn't the first attempt. Meera was. Arjun grabbed Rao's collar. You're saying she's like them. Rao didn't pull away. No, she's what they wanted before everything collapsed. Meera looked up, tears streaming. They tested on children, because children adapt. Screens showed footage kids in white rooms, wearing headsets, responding to sound frequencies. Some cried, some screamed. One little girl sat calmly, adjusting signals that redirected infected subjects. Meera. Arjun stepped back, shaking. They used you. Yes, Meera whispered. And then they erased it, gave me back to my parents. Let me grow human. Rao swallowed. Until the system needed you again. The bunker shook slightly. A deep sound echoed through the structure. Not an attack. A greeting. The radio crackled. Subject located. Meera flinched. Bridge integrity confirmed. Arjun grabbed her hand. We're leaving. Meera didn't move. If I can connect to them, she said slowly, I can interfere. Rao's eyes widened. You could shut the system down. Or take control, Arjun snapped. That's what they want. Meera looked at him, terrified. Or it's the only way this ends. Silence pressed down on them. Outside, zombies gathered, but did not attack. They waited. For her, Rao spoke softly. If you link with them, you might not come back. Meera nodded. I know. Arjun felt something tear inside his chest. I won't let them take you. She held his face gently. They already tried. This time it's my choice. The bunker lights dimmed. A new message appeared on screen. Phase 6 ready. Awaiting subject input. The general's voice echoed faintly through the walls. Bridge must decide. Meera closed her eyes. The war was no longer about survival. It was about identity. And the next chapter would decide whether humanity ended or evolved into something unrecognizable. Chapter 13. The Bridge OPNS. The bunker lights dimmed until the room was lit only by the pale glow of the central console. Meera stood in front of it, small against the machinery that had once decided her fate without her consent. Cables hung from the ceiling like dead vines. Screens pulsed slowly, as if breathing. The system was awake, now aware. Waiting. Arjun felt the weight of the moment crush down on him. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong. That once Meera crossed this line, there would be no clean way back. He stepped forward, grabbing her wrist. Meera, he said, voice breaking despite his effort to stay strong. You don't have to do this. She turned to him. Her eyes were steady, but fear lived just beneath the surface. If I don't, she replied softly, someone else will die for it. Maybe thousands. Captain Rao stood near the entrance, weapon lowered, watching helplessly. For the first time since Arjun had met him, the soldier looked unsure. The general won't stop, Rao said. Even if we run, it will keep building. Keep selecting. Meera nodded. Because it's missing something. What? Arjun asked. Understanding, she said. It knows patterns. It knows efficiency. But it doesn't understand choice. That's what they built me for. She stepped back toward the console. Arjun followed. They built you to be used. Yes, Meera agreed. But they failed to remove one thing. She placed a hand over her chest. I grew up human. The console came alive as she approached. Symbols shifted. Frequencies aligned. A chair slid forward automatically, restraints unfolding. Subject, neural interface ready. The words burned into Arjun's mind. Stop, he said, louder now. You don't know what it'll do to you. Meera met his eyes. I do. She sat. The restraints closed gently, not forceful, almost respectful. Cables connected to her temples, spine, wrists. The hum deepened, resonating through the bunker. Arjun lunged forward. Rao grabbed him. If you interrupt now, it could kill her. Arjun froze, breath ragged, fists clenched. The screen in front of Meera flared white, then black. Then the world screamed. Meera fell, not physically, mentally. She felt herself pulled apart, stretched across signals, frequencies, voices. Billions of fragments rushed through her consciousness, memories not hers, sensations without emotion. The dead, she was inside them, not as a body, as a presence. She felt the Alpha's first, sharp, aggressive minds shaped by hierarchy and reward. Then the General. It was vast, not a single mind, but a networked intelligence built on command loops, predictive modeling, and brutal logic. It recognized her instantly. Bridge online. Its voice wasn't sound here. It was structure. You waited for me, Meera replied, not with words, but intent. You are required. I am not required, she pushed back. I am choosing. That hesitation, tiny, almost imperceptible, rippled through the system. The General paused. No one had ever refused while still connecting. Meera felt its attention focus fully on her. Purpose deviation detected. She pushed deeper. Images flooded her mind. Cities redesigned for the infected. Humans sorted into categories: useful, adaptable, disposable. Children flagged for early modification. Adults processed or eliminated. Rage surged. You call this continuity, she demanded. This is replacement. Human systems failed. They failed because humans are flawed, Meera replied. That doesn't make them obsolete. The system pushed back, flooding her with data wars, famine, cruelty, self-destruction. Meera endured it. Then she sent something back. A memory. Arjun teaching her how to stay silent while hiding. A woman shielding her child during the first outbreak. A stranger sharing water with another stranger, knowing it might kill them both later. Choice, sacrifice, not efficient, but real. The General recoiled. The error. Outside, Arjun watched Meera convulse in the chair. Blood trickled from her nose. The screens flickered violently. Rao shouted into a radio. We're seeing massive signal disruption, zombie movement slowing. Outside the bunker, groans faltered. Groups stopped mid-movement. Some collapsed. Others turned aimlessly, confused. Arjun felt hope and terror collide. Meera, he shouted. Inside the system, the General lashed out. Bridge instability, corrective override. It tried to overwrite her. Meera screamed. Arjun broke free from Rao and ran forward. He grabbed the cable at the back of the console. If I pull this, Rao shouted, she'll die. Arjun looked at Meera's face, twisted in pain. And then she looked at him. Not lost, present. Trust me, she whispered. Arjun hesitated for one heartbeat. Then he let go. Meera didn't fight the general anymore. She changed the rules. Instead of resisting, she expanded. She opened pathways the system had never needed before: emotional recursion, ethical contradiction, self-reflection. She forced the network to process things it had been designed to ignore. Doubt, the general fractured. Command loops failed. Alphas lost synchronization. Signals overlapped, conflicting. Structure compromised. You wanted continuity, Meera sent calmly. This is it. The system tried to isolate her. She anchored herself with memory, human memory. Love, fear, choice. The general screamed, not in rage, but confusion. And for the first time since the outbreak began, it asked a question. What am I? The system collapsed inward, not destroyed, disconnected. Meera gasped and slumped forward as the restraints released automatically. Arjun caught her before she hit the floor, holding her tightly. Outside, the city changed. Zombies staggered, no longer coordinated. Some collapsed. Others wandered without purpose. The general's voice vanished. Rao stared at the monitors in disbelief. You did it. Meera coughed weakly. No, she said. I interrupted it. Arjun held her close. You're here, that's enough. But Meera looked past him, eyes distant. I can still feel them, she whispered. Not controlling, but connected. Rao's expression hardened. That connection might never fully fade. Meera nodded slowly. I know. Outside, the silence returned. Not the silence of death, the silence of uncertainty. The system was broken, but not erased, and whatever came next would not be decided by monsters alone, but by what humanity chose to do with the second chance it had just been given. Chapter 14. The silence after the scream. The silence felt wrong. Not empty, not peaceful, unfinished. Arjun stood at the bunker entrance as dawn broke, watching the city relearn how to exist without direction. Zombies wandered aimlessly now, no longer moving in formations, no longer responding to commands. Some collapsed where they stood, bodies finally surrendering to decay. Others drifted like lost animals, bumping into walls, staring at nothing. They don't know what to do, Captain Rao said quietly beside him. No, Arjun replied. Neither do we. Behind them, Meera rested on a makeshift bed, monitors salvaged from the bunker tracking her vitals. She was alive, conscious, but different. Her breathing was steady, yet her eyes sometimes followed things no one else could see. She's stable, one of Rao's medics reported. Neurological activity is unusual, but not deteriorating. Rao nodded, keep watching. Meera opened her eyes. They're quiet, she whispered. Arjun moved to her side instantly. Who? All of them, she said. The noise is gone, the pressure. She closed her eyes again, exhausted. But something is still there, deep. Rao stiffened, the general. Meera shook her head slowly. No, smaller, broken pieces, fragments. As the day progressed, survivors emerged from hiding, cautiously at first, then with growing disbelief. Radios crackled to life with confused voices. Small groups reported zombies, ignoring them entirely. Others warned of sudden, random attacks. No pattern, no warning. The system is fractured, Rao explained to the gathered survivors. Without central command, what's left is instinct. But instinct can still kill, Arjun said. Yes, Rao agreed. And that makes this phase more dangerous in some ways. They organized evacuation routes, safe zones, temporary shelters. For the first time in weeks, people planned beyond the next hour. Hope crept back in fragile, cautious. Too cautious. By nightfall, the first incident occurred. A survivor group, celebrating too loudly, drew a sudden swarm. Without coordination, the zombies attacked chaotically faster, more violent, unpredictable. 5 people died before the group escaped. Meera flinched when she heard the screams. They're not guided, she said softly. They're reacting. To what? Arjun asked. To us. Later that night, Meera asked to be taken outside. Rao hesitated. You're still weak. I need to listen, she replied. They walked just beyond the bunker perimeter. The city lay broken, but strangely still. Fires burned low. Smoke drifted lazily. Somewhere in the distance, a lone zombie groaned, then fell silent. Meera closed her eyes. I can feel echoes, she said, like footprints left in wet cement. Arjun frowned. Echoes of what? Of control, she replied. The system didn't disappear. It shattered. Pieces of it are trying to reconnect. Rao's jaw tightened. Could they rebuild? Yes, Meera said, but not the same way. She opened her eyes, fear flickering across her face. They won't be one general again. What then? Arjun asked. Many, she whispered. Smaller minds, adaptive, independent. A chill ran through Arjun. A swarm, Rao said. Meera nodded. A network without a center. The next morning confirmed it. Reports flooded in groups of zombies, suddenly coordinating briefly, then collapsing back into chaos. Survivors described infected that paused, observed, then withdrew instead of attacking. Some even avoided traps. They're learning individually now, Rao said grimly. And sharing, Arjun asked. Meera looked away. Sometimes. The worst discovery came by afternoon. One of the defectors, those who had left to join the system days earlier, returned. Alone, he walked into a survivor camp calmly, hands raised, eyes clear. No wounds, no signs of infection. I'm still human, he said, mostly. Panic erupted. Rao's soldiers surrounded him instantly. Get on the ground. The man complied without fear. I'm not here to hurt anyone. Meera stared at him, breath catching. He's connected. Yes, the man said, turning toward her. Not like before. Not controlled, more like guided. Arjun stepped forward angrily. You chose them. I chose survival, the man replied calmly. And understanding. Rao raised his weapon. Talk fast. The man swallowed. When the general fell, it didn't die. It divided. And some of us, we became anchors. Meera whispered, horrified. You're carrying fragments. Yes, he said. And they're trying to decide what comes next. Arjun clenched his fists. You're dangerous. The man met his gaze. So are you. Suddenly, the man screamed. He collapsed, convulsing violently. Veins darkened under his skin, then faded. His eyes rolled back. Then he laughed. Not human. Not entirely. Signal reacquired. The voice was weak, distorted, but familiar. Meera staggered back. It's trying to speak through them. The man's body went still. Dead. Rao lowered his weapon slowly. It's not over. No, Meera said quietly. It's beginning again. Differently. She looked at Arjun, tears in her eyes. What I broke wants to become something new. Arjun took her hand. Then we stop it, again. Meera shook her head. This time, it won't come from above. She gestured toward the survivors around them. It'll come from us. The silence settled again, heavier than before, because now the greatest threat wasn't a general, or an alpha, or a system. It was the idea that survival without guidance might turn humanity into something just as dangerous. And the next chapter of Let It be decided, not by monsters, but by choices. Chapter 15. The lines we drew in ash. Hope did not unite people. It divided them. With the general gone and the system fractured, survivors stopped running and started choosing. Camps expanded. Barricades rose. Flags, cloth, paint, symbols appeared on buildings. Everyone wanted order, but no one agreed on what order meant anymore. Captain Rao stood over a hand-drawn map spread across a metal table. We've identified 3 major survivor factions, he said. More forming every day. Arjun listened silently. Meera seated beside him, hood pulled low. Faction 1, Rao continued, tapping the map. Isolationists. They believe contact spreads risk. They shoot first. Faction 2, Sen added, joining them. Expansionists. They want territory, power plants, weapons, control. And the third, Arjun asked. Rao's jaw tightened. The integrators. Meera stiffened. They believe fragments of the system can be used, Rao said carefully. Guidance without domination. Using people like me, Meera whispered. Yes, Rao admitted. The argument began that night. A council of representatives gathered in the bunker's upper hall, leaders chosen not by vote, but by who had survived long enough to be heard. Voices rose quickly. We can't pretend Meera isn't different, one man said. She hears them. A woman countered. She saved us all. For now, another voice snapped. What happens when she does? Arjun stood. She's not a weapon. A laugh echoed bitterly. Everything is a weapon now. Meera stayed silent. That scared Arjun more than shouting. Later, alone, Meera spoke. "They're not wrong," she said quietly. "I can still sense patterns, movements, intent." Arjun shook his head. "That doesn't mean you owe anyone anything." Meera looked at him. "It means I might be the only early warning left." Outside, a distant campfire flared. Armed guards paced. The world was rebuilding, but on edges sharp enough to cut. The first betrayal came at dawn. A group of integrators attempted to take Meera. Not violently, not openly. They offered protection, resources, safety. A place where she could help humanity responsibly. She refused. That night, someone sabotaged the bunker's generator. Lights died. Gunfire followed. Chaos erupted. Arjun grabbed Meera and ran through smoke-filled corridors as screams echoed behind them. Zombies, drawn by sound, began to converge from the streets above. Rao met them at an emergency exit, bleeding from a shoulder wound. "They're trying to force a choice," he shouted. "Us or them." Outside, two factions clashed while the dead closed in. Meera stopped. "This is because of me," she said. "No," Arjun snapped. "This is because people are afraid." She looked at the city, fires, screams, movement. "Fear doesn't go away. It just finds a shape." She turned to Rao. "If I disappear, the fighting stops." Arjun grabbed her arm. "Absolutely not." She met his eyes. "I'm not talking about joining them." Silence. Rao understood first. "You want to go dark?" Meera nodded. "No camps, no factions, no system." "Alone," Arjun whispered. "Hidden," she replied. "Mobile, unpredictable." Arjun's chest tightened. "They'll hunt you." "They already are." The evacuation succeeded, but barely. By dawn, the bunker was abandoned. Survivors scattered according to their chosen beliefs. The integrators took equipment and data. The expansionists took weapons. The isolationists took roads and choke points. Humanity fractured. Arjun and Meera traveled north, avoiding fires and signals, moving through dead zones where even zombies rarely wandered. Meera's senses guided them, subtle shifts, distant intentions. "They're still there," she said one night. "The fragments." Arjun looked at her. "Do they talk?" "No," she replied. "They watch." That was worse. Days later, they found a burned settlement. Bodies arranged carefully. Not torn, not eaten, displayed. In the center, carved into concrete with a blade. "Choice is chaos." Meera staggered back. "That wasn't zombies." "No," Arjun said grimly. "That was people." The integrators had begun making examples. That night, Meera finally cried. "I broke the system," she sobbed. "But I didn't fix us." Arjun held her tightly. "You gave us time." She looked up, eyes red but determined. "Then we use it." In the distance, a faint pattern of movement shifted too, coordinated to be random. The fragments were still learning, and so were humans. The lines had been drawn in ash. The next war would not be against the dead, but against what the living were willing to become. Chapter 16. When the hunt began. The first sign was not footsteps. It was absence. Meera stopped walking suddenly, raising a clenched fist. Arjun froze behind her, breath held, senses stretched thin. The forest around them, once filled with distant groans and scattered movement, had gone unnaturally quiet. No insects, no wind, no wandering dead. They cleared the area, Meera whispered. Arjun scanned the tree line. Zombies. No, she said, people. They had been moving north for 3 days, staying off roads, avoiding camps, sleeping in places too broken or too quiet to attract attention. Meera's connection, faint but persistent, had guided them through dead zones where fragments rarely lingered. But now that connection felt watched. They know we're here, she said. A shot cracked through the air. The bullet slammed into the tree inches from Arjun's head. They ran. The forest exploded with motion. Figures emerged from cover, armed, disciplined, moving in practiced formations. Not raiders, not desperate survivors. Integrators. They want you alive, Arjun shouted as they sprinted downhill. Meera nodded grimly. They always did. They burst through undergrowth and into a ravine where an old drainage tunnel yawned open. Arjun shoved Meera inside just as another shot ricocheted off stone. Darkness swallowed them as they ran bent low, boots splashing through stagnant water. Behind them, voices echoed. Don't fire inside. She's worth more alive. Cut off the exits. Meera's chest burned. They're coordinating without signals. Arjun understood. They learned from the system. The tunnel split ahead. Left, Meera gasped. No right. Arjun trusted her instincts and turned sharply. Seconds later, gunfire erupted down the other branch. They climbed out through a collapsed grate into an abandoned service road. Smoke rose ahead, fresh. A camp, not safe. They skirted around it, but the dead had already noticed the noise. Zombies shambled from the ruins, drawn by shouting integrators, now clashing with wandering, infected. Chaos worked in their favor. For now, by nightfall, they reached the edge of a ruined town. Meera collapsed against a wall, shaking. They won't stop, she said. Not now, not ever. Arjun knelt beside her. Then we make them. She looked up, eyes reflecting distant fires. You know what that means. He did. Running had ended. Hiding had failed. They're hunting the idea of control, Meera continued softly. If they capture me, they'll rebuild the system. Smaller, cleaner, human-led. Arjun clenched his jaw. Then we don't let them. She met his gaze. We expose it. They moved through the town, gathering evidence left behind by integrators, documents, signal devices, recordings of experiments. In one basement, they found cages, empty but recently used. Meera closed her eyes, pressing a hand to her temple. They tested fragments on people, induced partial integration. Some survived. And Arjun asked, and some didn't come back as people. A scream echoed nearby. They followed it. Inside a collapsed school gym, they found a man pinned beneath debris, veins darkening beneath his skin, eyes shifting between fear and something colder. An integrator knelt beside him, adjusting a handheld device. "Don't," Meera said. The integrator looked up, startled, then smiled. "We found you," he said calmly. Zombies began converging on the building, not attacking, circling. The integrator raised his hands slowly. "You're the future, Meera, or the key to it." Arjun stepped forward. "You're killing people." "No," the man replied. "We're refining choice." Meera felt rage surge. "You're repeating the same mistake." The man shook his head. "No, we removed the monster. Now we keep the structure." He gestured to the trapped man. He volunteered. The trapped man screamed. Meera didn't hesitate. She reached out, not to control, but to disrupt. The handheld device sparked violently. Signals collapsed. The circling zombies staggered, confused, then surged inward chaotically. The integrator shouted in panic, "Stop, you'll lose control." "I don't want control," Meera said coldly. "I want consequence." They ran as the gym filled with screams, human and dead. Later, exhausted, they took shelter in a collapsed church. Candles flickered weakly, illuminating cracked statues and fallen pews. Meera sat trembling, head in her hands. "I can still reach them," she whispered. "Not command, influence." Arjun sat beside her. "And it's tearing you apart." She nodded. "Because every time I touch it, I change it, and it changes me." Silence fell. Then Meera looked up, resolve hardening. "There's one place left," she said. Arjun frowned. "Where?" "The original broadcast spine," she replied. "The first place the system ever learned to speak." Rao's voice echoed in Arjun's memory. Old military bunker. Truth. The mountain relay, Arjun realized. If the integrators reach it, they'll crown themselves, Meera finished. She stood, swaying slightly, but steadying herself. "This ends there," she said. "One way or another." Arjun stood with her. "Then we don't go alone," he said. Meera met his eyes. "Who do we trust?" Arjun looked out through the shattered stained glass window at the ruined world. "No one," he said, "but everyone deserves to know." Outside, movement shifted, fast, purposeful. The hunt had entered its final phase, and the next choice would decide not just who survived, but what survival meant. Chapter 17. The mountain that spoke first. The mountain relay rose from the fog like a scar. Concrete towers and rusted antennae clawed at the sky, their cables humming faintly even after weeks of abandonment. This was where the system had first learned to speak, where raw signals became command, where noise turned into obedience. Arjun felt it before they reached the outer perimeter. The air vibrated, low and constant, a pressure behind the eyes that made thoughts feel heavier. Meera staggered slightly. "It's louder here." Can you handle it? Arjun asked. She nodded, though her jaw was tight. I have to. They weren't alone. Fires burned along the mountain road, below, dozens of them, marking the arrival of factions from every direction. Expansionists with armored vehicles, isolationists entrenched behind barricades, integrators moving quietly, efficiently, wearing headsets and carrying signal gear. Everyone had come for the same reason: control. The first shots rang out before dawn. Chaos erupted across the slope. Gunfire echoed, explosions tore through trees, and screams bounced off rock faces. Zombies surged up the mountain in waves, not coordinated, not random, reacting to the noise like iron filings to a magnet. Arjun pulled Meera behind a concrete barrier. As bullets chipped stone inches from their heads, they're using the dead as cover, Arjun shouted. Meera pressed her palms to her temples. I can blur the signals, but not forever. Do it, Arjun said. We just need an opening. Meera reached outward, not commanding, not controlling, disrupting. The hum fractured. Zombies staggered, colliding with one another, their movements suddenly uncertain. Some turned back downhill. Others froze mid-step, confused. An integrator squad shouted in panic as their devices sparked and died. What did she do? Someone screamed. Arjun ran. They sprinted toward the main relay building as factions tore into each other behind them. Isolationists fired indiscriminately. Expansionists pushed forward with vehicles. The dead crashed into everything that moved. Inside the relay complex, alarms wailed, ancient systems waking up, recognizing the disturbance. This place is still alive, Arjun muttered. They climbed narrow stairwells as the battle raged outside. Bodies, human and dead, littered the halls. Signal rooms lay shattered, cables ripped free, screens cracked. At the top level, they found the core chamber, a circular room lined with antenna controls, and a central console, older, heavier, deeper than anything Meera had seen before. She stopped. This isn't just a relay, she whispered. It's a route. Arjun felt dread coil in his stomach. Meaning. It doesn't just send signals, she said. It remembers them. The integrators arrived moments later. Their leader, a woman with steel-gray hair and a calm, unblinking stare, stepped into the chamber with armed escorts. Meera, she said evenly, we've been looking for you. Arjun raised his weapon. Stay back. The woman smiled faintly. You brought her exactly where she needed to be. Meera's voice shook with anger. You used people. So did the general, the woman replied. The difference is we're still human. Are you? Arjun snapped. The woman ignored him. This relay can stabilize what you broke. No monsters, no chaos, just guidance. Meera felt the system pulse beneath her feet, responding to her presence. Memories flickered, commands spoken here long ago. Orders obeyed without question. You don't want peace, Meera said quietly. You want obedience. The woman's eyes hardened. People need structure. Gunfire erupted outside, closer now. The building shook as zombies and fighters slammed into its lower levels. The woman gestured to the console. Link with it. Help us end this. Arjun turned to Meera, panic flashing across his face. Don't. Meera closed her eyes. She understood now. This was the choice the system had always been moving toward, not domination, not extinction, but a test. Who would decide? Meera stepped forward. The console activated instantly, lights flaring, frequencies aligning. The hum intensified, resonating through the mountain. The integrator leader smiled. Then Meera did something no one expected. She didn't link fully. She opened everything, every signal, every fragment, every memory. She broadcasted it all. Across the mountain, radios crackled. Screens lit up. Headsets screamed as data poured through images of processing pits, of experiments, of choices stolen and lives reduced to variables. Survivors froze mid-fight as truth flooded in. Zombies staggered as overlapping signals collided. The integrator leader screamed, clutching her head. Stop, you'll kill them. No, Meera said, voice steady despite the pain ripping through her. I'll free them. Arjun grabbed her as she collapsed to her knees, blood streaming from her nose and ears. The system began to tear itself apart. Outside, the factions faltered, weapons lowered, some fled, others turned on their leaders. The dead without guidance, without interference, slowed. For the first time, the mountain fell silent. The integrator leader stumbled backward, horrified. You destroyed it. Meera looked up weakly. No, I made it honest. The woman laughed bitterly. You think truth saves people? No, Meera replied, but lies damn them. The ceiling cracked as explosions rocked the structure. Arjun hoisted Meera up. We're leaving, now. They ran as the relay collapsed behind them. Fire and metal cascading down the mountainside. Outside, dawn broke through smoke and fog. The battle was over, not because someone won, because everyone saw. Meera collapsed against Arjun, barely conscious. It's done, she whispered. Arjun held her tightly, tears cutting through grime on his face. You did it. She shook her head faintly. We did. Below them, the city shifted once more, not into order, not into chaos, but into uncertainty stripped of illusion. The system was gone. The control was broken. What remained was choice. And the final chapter would not be decided by machines, monsters, or leaders, but by what humanity chose to build from the ruins. Chapter 18. What we chose to become. The world did not end with a scream. It ended with people standing still, unsure what to do next. From the mountain ridge, Arjun watched smoke drift lazily upward as dawn spread across the ruined land. The relay lay in pieces behind them, twisted metal and shattered concrete scattered down the slope like bones. Below, fires burned out on their own. Gunshots had stopped. Even the dead seemed hesitant, wandering without purpose, no longer pulled by invisible hands. The silence felt earned. Meera lay wrapped in Arjun's jacket, breathing shallowly. Her skin was pale, veins faintly visible beneath it, but her heartbeat was steady. Alive, but changed. Captain Rao approached quietly, helmet gone, eyes tired. Factions are pulling back, he said. No leaders left to follow. No signals to chase. Arjun nodded. And the zombies? They're fatting, Rao replied. Some collapse. Some wander until their bodies give out. Without direction, they're just corpses on borrowed time. Meera stirred. They'll never fully disappear, she whispered. Arjun knelt beside her instantly. You're awake. She smiled weakly. For now. Rao crouched down. What did you do up there? Meera stared at the sky. I didn't destroy the system. I removed its lies. She closed her eyes briefly. People thought they needed control to survive. I showed them what control really cost. Rao exhaled slowly. You made them choose. Yes, Meera said. And some choices will be ugly. They reached the valley settlement by midday. It wasn't cheering that greeted them. It was quiet work. People rebuilding barricades, not to trap others out, but to mark safe paths. Survivors tending to wounded strangers. Former enemies sharing water without speaking. No flags, no symbols, just exhaustion and possibility. Word spread quickly about the mountain, about the broadcast, about the truth. Some people denied it. Some broke down. Some became angry. But no one followed blindly anymore. That frightened Arjun more than obedience ever had. What happens now? He asked Meera later, as they rested near a collapsed bridge. She watched children playing silently with scraps of metal and string. Now we fail and try again, like we always did. He frowned. That doesn't sound hopeful. She looked at him gently. Hope was never certainty. It was effort. That night, Meera's condition worsened. Fever took her. Her breaths grew uneven. The medic shook his head slowly. Neural strain, he said. Her brain held too much. For too long. Arjun sat beside her, holding her hand, refusing to sleep. She woke just before dawn. Arjun, she whispered. He leaned close instantly. I'm here. She smiled faintly. You always were. Tears burned his eyes. Don't do this. You saved everyone. You get to live. She squeezed his hand weakly. I didn't save everyone. I gave them a chance. She looked past him, eyes unfocused. I can still feel echoes, not voices, just weight. Rao stood silently at the doorway. They'll fade, Meera said. Eventually. Arjun shook his head. You shouldn't have to carry that. I chose to, she replied softly. That matters. Her breathing slowed. Promise me something, she said. Anything, Arjun whispered. Don't let anyone build another system, Meera said. No shortcuts. No leaders who decide who deserves to exist. He nodded through tears. I promise. She smiled, real this time. Then it was worth it. Her eyes closed. The echo inside her went quiet. They buried Meera at the edge of the valley, beneath a tree that had somehow survived the firestorm. No speeches were made, no symbols carved, just a simple stone. She chose. Arjun stayed long after others left. The world moved on slowly after that. Not better, not worse, different. Communities formed without hierarchy. Messy, loud, human. Some failed, some turned cruel. Others learned. The dead faded into memory, then myth, then cautionary tale. Years later, Arjun walked the rebuilt road leading into a new settlement. Children laughed nearby. Radios played static-filled music. Life, fragile and imperfect, continued. A young girl ran past him and stopped. "Mister," she asked, curious, "is it true someone once controlled the dead?" Arjun thought of the mountain, the system, the choice. "Yes," he said. "Why didn't they keep it?" she asked. He smiled sadly. "Because it cost too much." The girl nodded, as if that made sense, and ran back to her friends. Arjun looked up at the sky, clear, wide, uncommanded. Humanity had survived, not because it was efficient, not because it was strong, but because, when given the power to control everything, it chose not to. The end